just days ago, the Caribbean really became a new flashpoint. It ignited a dangerous standoff that definitely grabbed international headlines. We saw Venezuelan F-16 fighter jets aggressively buzzing a U.S. warship, the USS Jason Dunham.
Right, in international water.
Exactly. The Pentagon called it extremely provocative. And this happened right after the Trump administration confirmed a deadly missile strike
On that Venezuelan speedboat.
killing 11 alleged drug smugglers, apparently linked to the Tren de Aragua gang.
And what's really striking here, looking at the sources, is this isn't just, a one-off incident.
Right.
It signals a pretty aggressive shift in U.S. strategy against transnational crime. These are huge networks we're talking about.
Huge how?
Well, the sources estimate their annual revenue is around $2.2 trillion.
Trillion? Wow.
Yeah. To give you some perspective, that's about the size of Mexico's entire economy. And that kind of money, that kind of power, it directly threatens American security. It demands a response.
Okay, $2.2 trillion. That really sets the stage for what the administration is framing as a monumental challenge.
Definitely.
Defending our borders, our communities from what they're calling a tidal wave of crime and deadly drugs. And we're seeing a president taking action described as unprecedented, very decisive. So today, we're taking a deep dive into this assertive, often militarized approach the Trump administration is using, specifically against transnational organized crime and what they term the narco-terror cartel in Venezuela.
Right.
We'll unpack this shift, from standard law enforcement to more direct military action. We'll look at the domestic impact, too, and try to understand why these measures are being sold as vital for, Main Street USA.
Exactly. Our goal here is to really get behind the headlines. We've looked at a whole stack of recent government reports, strategies, expert analyses.
Sources?
To pull out the critical insights for you to help make sense of this intensifying global chess match.
Okay, so let's start right there. Unpack this threat for us. Why are sources saying it's more than just drugs? Why a fundamental danger?
Well, what's fascinating is how transnational organized crime, TOC as it's called, has grown. It's become this truly formidable adversary.
Formidable how? Beyond the money.
It's the power that money buys. That $2.2 trillion figure we mentioned. It lets them corrupt governments, buy advanced weapons. They can rival some states, frankly.
Okay.
That financial muscle allows them to operate with a level of sophistication and sometimes impunity that traditional law enforcement really struggles with.
So it's a systemic challenge, not just catching bad guys.
Precisely. And it gets amplified when you factor in what the sources call state-sponsored crime.
Like Venezuela.
Exactly. Our sources explicitly label Venezuela a narco state.
Yeah.
They accuse it of actively fueling these criminal networks, undermining anti-drug efforts.
Right. And the U.S. Justice Department has gone after Maduro directly.
They have, accusing Nicolás Maduro himself of leading the Cartel de los Soles, the Cartel of the Suns. And importantly, they've designated that group as a specially designated global terrorist organization.
Okay, what does that designation actually do? What's the practical effect?
That's a key point. It's not just a name. It's a powerful legal tool.
How so?
It triggers really severe financial sanctions. It blocks their assets, prohibits anyone from doing business with them, essentially cuts them off from the U.S. financial system, international markets.
So it escalates things beyond just drug enforcement.
Absolutely. It makes them a target for counterterrorism efforts. And then, complicating things further, the sources point to China and Russia.
The great power competitors.
Yes. Gaining influence in Latin America, openly supporting Maduro's regime. And you also have Chinese producers playing a huge role in the fentanyl trade.
Which is devastating here at home.
Exactly. Responsible for something like 70,000 deaths a year in the U.S. So this isn't just a far-off problem. It connects directly back to American communities.
That's a really complex web of threats. So given all that, how is the administration's response different? What's the philosophy behind this assertive shift we're seeing?
Well, the big picture view shows a really decisive pivot. The sources say the Trump administration has explicitly shifted focus.
Away from just law enforcement?
Right, towards direct military action. It's often framed under this idea of the MAGA Monroe Doctrine.
Explain that a bit. What does that mean in practice?
As proponents describe it, it's about asserting clear U.S. dominance in the Western Hemisphere, protecting American interests, but maybe less constrained by traditional diplomatic norms.
A peace through strength approach.
That's exactly the term used, projecting power to deter adversaries and being willing to use it proactively if deemed necessary.
And how does labeling groups like Tren de Aragua as terror groups fit into that?
That designation is crucial within this framework. Groups like Tren de Aragua, Los Lobos, Los Choneros in Ecuador, they've been formally designated terror groups
And that gives legal cover
for what they call kinetic strikes. That's the official term.
meaning lethal force, military action.
Yes. The argument presented in these reports is that these groups aren't just criminals anymore. They're national security threats. So they warrant a military-style response, like counterterrorism.
And domestically, focusing on cartels is seen
As a political winner, according to the sources.
Yeah.
It frames intervention as necessary national security, protecting, as the administration says, Main Street USA from cocaine, from gang violence. It's a message aimed right at public concerns about safety.
Okay, so with that doctrine shift, those terror designations, what does it look like on the ground, or I guess on the water in the Caribbean? You said the response was swift and muscular.
Yeah, connecting the policy to the actions, we see major military moves. The U.S. sent F-35 fighter jets to Puerto Rico.
As a forward base.
Exactly, and deployed at least 8 U.S. warships into the Caribbean. We're talking Aegis missile destroyers, an amphibious squadron, surveillance planes, even an attack submarine.
That's a significant force.
It's a very clear signal of U.S. capability and intent in the region. And it was that naval presence, that force, that carried out the missile strike on the Venezuelan speedboat.
The one that killed the alleged smugglers.
Linked to Tren de Aragua, yes, those 11 individuals.
And beyond direct strikes, what other pressure is being applied to Venezuela specifically?
Well, it's not just military. The Department of Justice formally indicted Nicolas Maduro himself, plus other high-level officials.
On what charges?
Narco-terrorism. Very serious charges. And along with that, there's a $50 million reward out for Maduro's capture.
Wow, $50 million.
It signals a clear intent to dismantle what the U.S. sees as a state-sponsored criminal operation right from the top.
And how did Venezuela react to all this?
Predictably, pretty forcefully. Maduro mobilized militias, moved military assets around, and then there was that F-16 incident we started with.
Buzzing the USS Jason Dunham.
Right. That was a direct response. Maduro accused the U.S. of trying to force regime change through military threats, of wanting Venezuela's natural resources. He vowed a republic in arms if attacked. So tensions are clearly very high.
Okay, so while all that's playing out internationally, how does this assertive stance connect back home? What are the domestic policy changes we're seeing?
Well, looking internally, the sources show a clear focus on boosting national security and control here too, reflecting that same peace through strength idea.
Like what, for example?
One proposal mentioned is President Trump planning to rename the Department of Defense
To what?
the Department of War by executive order. The stated goal is to revive a warrior ethos, send a stronger deterrence message.
Interesting. And what about domestically, on the streets?
Well, the administration activated the National Guard in Washington, D.C.,
Why?
citing rampant crime. And that deployment led to over 1,760 arrests since early August, according to the reports.
Have they considered that for other cities, too?
Yes. Sources say similar Guard deployments were looked at for places like New Orleans, Chicago, Baltimore. The idea being to fix up high-crime areas.
Has that happened?
It's faced pushback. Some local officials rejected federal intervention, and in California, a judge actually ruled the Guard couldn't perform law enforcement duties in L.A. So there are jurisdictional hurdles.
Okay. And immigration policy, how does that fit in?
We see aggressive moves there, too, revoking temporary protected status, TPS for certain Venezuelans.
Affecting how many people?
Around 250,000, potentially. Sources describe the move as intended to force them to leave the country.
And what about deportations, especially targeting gang members?
That's definitely visible. Around 200 alleged Venezuelan gang members accused of ties to Tren de Aragua MS-13 were apparently sent to El Salvador.
Under an agreement?
Yes, under a deal with President Bukele there. It's an effort to sort of push the threat outwards. And related to that, a federal appeals court just temporarily stopped the dismantling of that controversial Alligator Alcatraz detention center down in Florida.
Why stop?
The court cited public interest specifically, maintaining detention capacity over environmental concerns raised about the facility. It underscores the priority being placed on enforcement and detention.
So it's clear this isn't just about military power. You mentioned asymmetrical tools. What financial and legal strategies are being used to hit these criminal networks?
Right. This is where the U.S. uses tools that operate kind of below the surface of traditional conflict. Think things like the 2011 strategy to combat transnational organized crime, a 2017 executive order.
Okay.
But a really key asymmetrical tool is financial sanctions, especially under the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Designation Act, That's from 1999.
The Kingpin Act, how does that actually work to disrupt groups?
It's powerful because it basically locks designated traffickers and their networks out of the entire U.S. financial system.
Meaning?
They can't use U.S. dollars, can't have accounts in U.S. banks, can't trade with U.S. entities. The goal is to just choke off their cash flow, make it incredibly hard for them to operate, pay people, expand.
Targeting the money.
Exactly. A big focus is on money laundering cases, especially, the huge amounts of illicit cash involved.
Yeah.
One investigator cited in our sources, Doug Farah, estimated the Chavista network in Venezuela moved something like $40 billion in illegal funds over the last decade.
$40 billion? That's staggering.
It really is. So hitting those financial arteries is seen as absolutely critical to breaking their power.
And just shifting slightly, Venezuela obviously has massive oil reserves. Do the sources connect U.S. actions to that resource at all?
That's definitely part of the broader geopolitical context mentioned. Venezuela has the world's second largest proven oil reserves.
Right.
So while the stated U.S. goals are counter-narcotics, national security, some sources and analysts do suggest there's also a geopolitical dimension.
Aiming for influence over the oil.
Potentially. The idea being perhaps to push out competitors like China, Russia, Iran, who all have stakes there, maybe eventually licensing U.S. or European companies instead.
So complex motives potentially at play.
It highlights that mix of security, economics, and global power competition that's always simmering in the region.
Well, this deep dive really lays out a U.S. strategy that seems fundamentally different, driven by, as the administration puts it, an urgent need to protect the homeland from transnational crime, from these narco states. We've seen everything from kinetic strikes in the Caribbean to National Guard in U.S. cities to these powerful financial sanctions. It's all part of that peace through strength approach they talk about.
Absolutely. The sources we've covered really point to a decisive, integrated strategy across international and domestic fronts. The stated aim: dismantle these criminal regimes, secure the borders.
And the objective seems crystal clear from their perspective.
Defend American interests, protect Main Street USA from what they perceive as this constant threat of drugs and violence.
So with the stakes obviously incredibly high, and what seems like an unwavering commitment from the administration to confront these threats directly, this deep dive makes it pretty clear. This global fight against narco-terror, it's nowhere near over.
Far from it.
And America's aggressive strategy is undeniably changing the whole game, which leaves us with the question, what will these bold, sometimes unprecedented actions ultimately mean for the safety, the sovereignty, and maybe the future direction of our nation in the years ahead?